It's totally fun. I have a lot more stories.
That you do.
Yeah.
That you do.
Guilty as charged with the stories.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to I've Got Something to Say. Thanks so much for tuning into my podcast and listening to my stupid little stories. This week's tale is entitled You Betcha. One of my favorite things when I was a younger kid was to be at either one of my grandparents' house and have them say, hey, what if we set up the projector and get out the home movies? And do you remember that, Paul? Did your family watch the home movie?
No, we did not.
Seriously?
We did not have. We made them as kids. Me and my brothers made some.
Oh, that's right. You guys made your own.
But not really home movies.
Yeah. See, at mine, it was the same stuff. I think they just did them when I was a little kid and stopped, and so very rarely they would pull them out. But I was always excited. Just the sound of the projector and seeing everybody in the family looking ridiculous. I wax nostalgic every year when I watch Christmas Vacation and Chevy Chase gets caught up in the attic and finds all the old family films and watches them. So it was that kind of thing. And I remember, and this is one of those memories that I think how I remember it is correctly, but I was so young, it maybe is a little bit different. But what I think I remember was a movie that my grandpa Whiting had taken when we were way up north in Minnesota. We were up by Lake Superior. And I was about 3 at the time this particular movie happened because both of my arms were broken. I think maybe I've told that story before. I had casts on both arms. Oh, I'll have to tell that. There's a story for another time. Two broken arms at 3 years old. But I had to walk along the beach with bread sacks tied over my cast so that I wouldn't get them wet. But if you know anything about Lake Superior, A, it's the biggest of the Great Lakes, and B, it's incredibly cold all the time. And so in this home movie, my memory is my cousin Kim, who is 10 years older than me, so she would have been 13 at the time, runs into the lake and comes back out, and she's all cold and shivering. And then it looks like she's really pissed off. So the story behind this was that my dad had talked to her and said, hey, Kim, tell you what, I bet you won't get in that lake because it's whatever it was, 30 degrees or negative 100. I have no idea, but really cold. And she said, oh, yeah, I'll do it. And so the bet was if she did it, then he had to do it. So she ran in and she got all cold and came back out, and then he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And so she got all pissed off about it, which is totally understandable. That was really my first introduction to betting people. And so one thing I learned was, hey, I don't want to do it because I might have to be forced to do something I don't want to do. And B, it's not good to welch on a bet. You just can't do that. I love my dad. He was amazing. And, despite some of the stories I've told about him on here when he made me feel like an idiot as a young kid, he was a great guy. Still wish he were here today. But you can't welch on a bet, Dad. You can't do that. So fast forward many, many years, I'm not big into betting. Not huge into casinos. Vegas is fun for a couple of days, but typically I set a limit of like $40, and after I lose that, I'm done. I'm not into betting. So several years ago, I was at home with my kids. They were in 3rd and 5th grade at the time, and I remember this because 3rd grade year is the year that you do your times tables. And so my youngest daughter, Abby, was whatever you are in 3rd grade, 8, 9 years old. And I had to time her doing her times tables at night for her homework. And my oldest daughter, Molly, was in 5th grade and comes out and goes, hey, Abby, I bet you can't do your times tables in under 3 minutes. And Abby's like, oh, yeah, what do you want to bet? Molly goes, $5. And I'm like, okay, guys, now here's the deal. You can do this bet, but seriously, the loser has to pay $5. You don't want to be like your dead grandfather. You don't welch. Okay, I didn't say that part. You don't welch on a bet, okay? So they knew the rules. The parameters were set. I was the timekeeper. Abby took off. She not only finished them in 3 minutes, she got every one right. So I'm like, okay, Molly, you got to pay up. To her credit, Molly, somewhat begrudgingly, walked down to her room, and she came back and had a sock that had a big wad of something in it. And she reached down into the sock and pulled out one of the biggest rolls of bills I've ever seen in my life. I could not believe the wad of cash that this kid had. So she's flipping through bills, and she peels out her worst $5 bill in there and gives it to Abby. And I go, excuse me, Molly, but what's that? And she goes, well, it was $267. Now it's $262. Like, okay, Molly, where did you get this money? She goes, I make bets at school. Like, what? What do you mean you make bets at school? She said, well, like I'll bet people that I'll get a higher score on a test than them, or I'll bet them that I can make something with the cafeteria food so gross that they won't eat it. And it's one of these moments, and I'm sure many people have had them with their kids, where I was equal parts abhorred, just like, what the hell are you doing? And also totally impressed. Like, my God, this, 11-year-old kid is raking in way more money than me and way more ambitious than me. But I need to set the table and let her know what she's up against. So I'm like, I'm going to tell you to stop this, but I know you well enough to know that you may not. So here's the deal. If you continue to do bets at school and you get caught, I'm not coming to your defense with the teacher or the principal or whoever. Whatever punishment they decide to deal out, you're going to have to do. That's the way this goes. And she's like, okay, yeah, I get it, Dad. To this day, I don't know if Molly has stopped making bets with people. I do know at any given point in time, Molly will have more in her savings account than me. Are they ill-gotten gains or are they fairly gotten gains? I don't know. And she's 19 years old, so I'm not going to ask anymore. That does it for this edition of I've Got Something to Say. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. Really appreciate your ear. Means a lot to me. Hey, big thanks to the folks at KCTK Radio. Sometimes I take for granted the wonderful platform that I've got here. Thank you to Paul and the good people here for making this happen. And check out all of their quality content. They got a lot of good shows on here. I will talk to you all next time.